Welcome to the Intuit Developers channel. I'm Lucy Shen, a developer advocate here at Intuit, and I'm here today with Ashpak, Kyle, and Carlo, the maintainer team for GraphQuilt. GraphQuilt is an open architecture for combining multiple GraphQL APIs into one, and you can check the description directly for links to the documentation if you want to jump right in. But otherwise, Ashpak, can you show me a little bit of what GraphQuilt can do?
GraphQL is a project that was started at Intuit as GraphQL gained popularity with the number of microservices growing at Intuit. In order for clients to continue to reap the benefits of a single endpoint data access provided by GraphQL, there was a need for an orchestrator that could aggregate schemas from multiple microservices into a unified GraphQL schema. GraphQL does exactly that. It is a Java library that provides schema stitching and Apollo-style schema composition. At runtime, the orchestrator federates the query to individual microservices and returns the aggregated response to the clients. We've also open sourced a reference implementation of a highly performant GraphQL gateway that is being used in production at the Intuit Consumer Group. We've had incredible success in scaling the GraphQL gateway with 50 plus microservices and 150 plus clients.
Thank you, Ashpak, for the quick walkthrough. Carlo, could you give us a quick 2-minute demo of the process of accessing data through the GraphQL microservices?
Okay, so here we have 3 services running. So one is called person name service, and the second one is person address service, and the third one is the GraphQL gateway application itself. Each service has its own GraphiQL. This is a UI tool when you can view the documentation for your GraphQL service, and then you can also run queries against them. For the first tab, so this is the person name service. So it has a person type, and it includes the first name and last name fields. You can also run query against them. So yeah, person. And then you can query the first name and the last name. And running this query should give you this result. So Tony start. For the second service, it also has a person as a top level field, and it only has the address field. And if you query this, so you have the person as the top level, and then address, and then it has city, state, and the zip. So if you run, so it will give you just the city, state, and zip. So the person address service doesn't have the first name and last name fields, so it will be an error if you try to query that one. For the third service, this is the GraphQL. So you can see that the person is combined in this service. So here you can see the person type has field name, last name, and the address, and you can query them. So what the GraphQL orchestrator library does, so if it receives this query, so you have the first name, last name, and address, so it splits that query and calls the appropriate downstream services. So in this case, first name and last name goes to the person service, and the address goes to the person address service, and then combines the result afterwards.
Thank you, Carlo, for that really quick demo. How do we get started? If someone looks at this, they're like, that's great, I want to go ahead and get configured. What are their steps to get set up? Kyle, could you walk us through that?
So the steps to start up using GraphQuilt is pretty simple. The first thing you have to do is go to your POM and add the orchestrator to it as a dependency. Afterwards, you just have to create or implement the service provider, which is one of the interfaces that we provide in the library, for each of the GraphQL services that you have. And there are a few things you have to implement for it, which is the get namespace, the SDL files, and the query method, which is part of the query executor. In this case, for the previous example where Carlo was using, there was the person address. So we have to create the namespace. We just set it as person address. What this namespace does is that it allows the client to know who exactly they're calling. And then we have the SDL files. The SDL files is just a map of the schema so that the orchestrator can stitch it all together, or has a place to be able to stitch it. And then the query function or method is just a way that the orchestrator uses to retrieve the data for that specific field. In this case, we created a static data fetcher or a static fetcher for that data, But in the case of anyone that's using it, what you would do is have an HTTP call or some type of way to call that downstream service. Or you could have the data locally and you would just call it from yourself. So, and here is another example where they have the person name, which is another service that Carlo showed previously. And so after you created those two services that implements the service provider, the last real step that you have to do is create the orchestrator. So the first step is create the schema stitcher and then add those two services that you previously created and then stitch the graph. Then you provide that stitched graph to the orchestrator we created a builder for it. And that's all that's really needed for this orchestrator. It should then stitch the schemas together for the two services. And then now you're ready to go to send a GraphQL request to it. In this example here, we have a test that creates the orchestrator and then proceeds to send a query to it. And in this case, it was able to return the results back and it's able to assert it. And that's all.
Throughout this journey, we encountered various problems that we solved systematically with the goal of sharing it with the open source community. Some of the solutions are the REST adapter. It's a declarative way to have the REST services also participate in the GraphQL ecosystem. Then we have the GraphQL authorization library that enforces fine-grained access control for our clients using the GraphQL Java instrumentation. We also have type conflict resolution because it's very easy to get into type conflicts when we have so many microservices participating in a single GraphQL ecosystem. Please do check out the GraphQL Orchestrator Java library and other tools in the GraphQL GitHub organization. Some of these tools are beneficial for individual microservices as well, and not just the gateway.
If anyone watching this wants to go ahead and get started, we have links to the documentation in the description, so go ahead and check those out. Everything is on graph-quilt.github.io, so you can find links to documentation, the getting started guide, etc. Everything we've shown you here is all there as well. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and we'll get them to our wonderful maintainers here. Thank you again to Ashpak, Carlo, and Kyle for joining us today. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.